Hi everyone, it's Terry, 1965 gal, back again with another edition of All Souls Matter. This is episode 7. I've taken a few days off. I was not feeling very well, but I'm back at it today. So let's get started with our prayer, as we should enter in. Anytime you read the Bible, you should enter into it prayerfully. So here we go. Dear Lord, please bless the word today, your word, and please bless all those that will hear this, and please help me to be able to express to everyone who needs this the meaning behind it. And we love you. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Alright, I'm starting out on chapter 38 today. And I'm going to do this for 15 minutes and then do a commentary after. So just 1 minute here. Get out your Bibles and read along with me, because it helps to, if you see the word when I read it, it'll help you to perceive it better. I'm going to set a timer here, so for 15 minutes. There we go. Here we go. Alright, chapter 38. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Edomite whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in unto her. And she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Chezrib when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass, when he went unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house, till Selah my son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And in process of time the daughter of Shula, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timoth, and he and his friend Hira the Eldamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timoth to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which is by the way to Timoth. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose, and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Edomite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are, am I with child? And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these, the signet and bracelets and staff? Judah acknowledged them and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son. And he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed, that the one put his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out, and she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Chapter 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him the hand of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the man was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him oversee over his house, and all that he had put into his hand. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him oversee in his house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessings of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hands, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a godly person, and well favored. And it came to pass after these things, that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand, and there is none greater in this house than I. Neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her, or be with her. And it came to pass about this time, that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house were within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled, and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house, and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled, and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and there he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Chapter 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offered their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in the ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, that there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me then, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and he said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it, the 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner which thou wast his butler. But think on me, then it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing, that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket there was all manner of bake meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof, the 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all of his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants, and he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him. Chapter 41. And it came to pass the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, and fat-fleshed, and they fed on a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by another kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the 2nd time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. The 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told them his dream. But there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, and we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream he did interpret. It came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream. There is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it? And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river. Behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine, and when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good, and behold, 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God has showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. And the 7 good kine are 7 years. The 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. The 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7th plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities, and that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had. They cried before him, Bow the knee, and he made him a ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zapnith Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asnith, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt, and Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out of the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid upon the food in the cities, the food of the field which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. Joseph gathered corn as in the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asnith, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according to Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, and the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses, and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came unto Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all the lands. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there, because I know my 15 minutes ended, but I wanted to get to the end of chapter 41. We're at the beginning of 42 for next time, but I'm gonna stop for a second, and I'll do a. Okay, now I'm gonna do a commentary on chapters 38 through 41. Chapter 38, and it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Elamite whose name was Hira. Judah was the brother of Joseph, who talked them out of killing Joseph, but selling him to the Egyptians. Anyway, Judah saw there was a daughter of a certain Canaanite, remember that. Canaanites are a no-no. And then he took her and went unto her, and she conceived a son called and then she conceived again a son called Onan, and conceived again and called his name Shelah, and he was at Shezib when she bare him. Okay, so Joseph took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. So his firstborn with this Canaanite lady, Judah's firstborn with the Canaanite lady was Tamar. His heir was his firstborn, and then he married Tamar. And then was wicked, so the Lord killed him. And then his secondborn, Onan, he set up Onan to go with Tamar, the heir's widowed wife, and to get her pregnant but he instead of conceiving with her, he didn't go through with it. And then the thing that he did displease the Lord, and he slew him also. So Judah lost two sons now with Tamar. And then he told Tamar to remain a widow until Selah be grown and old enough. And so she went and dwelt in her father's house. So then Judah's wife died, and he and his friend Hira the Adamite was comforted by Timoth. It was told Tamar, Behold, the father-in-law goeth up to Timoth to shear his sheep. So she put her widow's garments off from her and covered with a veil and wrapped herself and sat in an open place. So she, Judah's daughter-in-law, widowed daughter-in-law, put a veil on and everything, and then she went and covered her face and everything, and then she had sex with her father-in-law and conceived and everything. And then Judah didn't know that was his daughter-in-law, but he thought she was a harlot. So everybody was like, no, there's no harlot. And they couldn't find her because she asked him to give her all this stuff in order to be with her, but he could not find the harlot. And so it came to pass 3 months after it was told Judah that Tamar, the daughter-in-law, had played the harlot, and also, behold, she was with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth and let her be burnt. And she said, By the man who these are, am I with child? And she said, Discern, I pray thee, who are these, the signet and the bracelets and the staff? And Judah acknowledged them, and she said, She hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more. And it came to pass that she had twins, and so Judah and his daughter-in-law had twins, and the midwife took a scarlet thread, and they put the scarlet thread on the supposed firstborn, but really it was the secondborn. So they were doing some deception again. And so it came to pass as he drew back his hand, that behold, his brother came out, and she said, Thou hast thou broken forth this breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Chapter 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. So this is Joseph now. We're going back to Egypt. Joseph, the brother who got sold by his brethren to Egypt, to the Pharaoh. And his master saw, his master saw the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found grace in his sight of the Pharaoh. So he let him have everything he wanted, and let him just control everything in the Egypt and stuff. And but his wife, Pharaoh's wife, or Pharaoh left, and then his wife wanted to have sex with Joseph, but he said, no, I can't have sex with my Lord's wife. And nobody else was there. She waited till nobody else was there, and then she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled. He got out of there, but he got out of there so fast he left his garment, his clothes. He left his jacket or whatever. And then she said that he left his garment in her hand. She called upon the men of her house and spoke unto them, saying, See, he hath brought into me a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me, and lie with me, and cried with a loud voice. So she said that he left his garment, and she laid upon his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came unto me and to mock me. Came to pass, when she cried out, he left his garment and fled. And then the master heard the words of his wife, and then he took and put Joseph into prison, and so he was in prison, and then so he was in charge of the prisoners. He was like a leader of the prisoners in the prison. So in chapter 40, the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt, and Pharaoh was wroth against the two of them, so he put them both in prison. So they both had dreams. The baker and the butler both had dreams, and then Joseph said that the Lord would tell him what the dreams were interpreted as, and the butler, the butler told his dream. There was a vine, and then the vine were 3 branches, and it was budded, and the blossoms shot forth, and the clusters brought forth ripe grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them unto Pharaoh's cup, and gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days the Pharaoh will lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup unto his hand after the former manner. So that means the butler was going to be restored in 3 days. It's going to be the butler again. But then the baker had a dream about 3 white baskets on his head. In the uppermost basket there was a manner of bake meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation, that the 3 baskets are 3 days, and yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh. It came to pass the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants. So he restored the chief butler unto his butlership, and he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand, and he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted. Yet did not the chief... Joseph asked the butler to remember him and just tell him, tell Pharaoh that, remember me when when this happens to you, but he didn't. Chapter 41, it came to pass after 2 full years, Pharaoh dreamed, and he stood by a river, and there was 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow, and there was some ill-favored lean-fleshed kine. So there were 7 kine. I'm not sure what kine is. Maybe some cattle, and they were like really healthy cattle. There were 7 kine and fat-fleshed cattle on a meadow, and then after them there was lean-fleshed kine upon the brink of the river. So the kine ate up, the lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored kine and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the second time. And then 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk that were all good. And then 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So he asked his butler to get all the magicians, all the interpreters, all to come and figure out what was going on. So the chief butler, nobody could figure out what the interpretation was, but then there was the butler remembered Joseph, that he interpreted the dreams. So then Pharaoh sent for Joseph out of the dungeon, and then Pharaoh, he told Joseph to interpret his dream, and so he said, God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And he said, well, the kine, the cattle, I guess you'd say, the 7 fat kine that were healthy, or meant 7 years of healthy and prosperous years that were to come. And then after that, the lean and ill-favored, lean-fleshed kine went 7 years of famine. So there's going to be 7 years of good and 7 years of bad right after that. So he told them that's what that meant. So he gave Joseph his position back, being like ruling over a lot of the people, and he just made him a second-hand man. He made him like just about as important as he was, and so then what they did was they gathered up all the food in the land of Egypt, and for 7 years they gathered a lot of extra food for another 7 years, because they knew there was going to be 7 years of famine. So for 7 years they worked really, really hard and gathered a lot of corn, and Joseph, and unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asnath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God saw he hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second child he called Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And then the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according to Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. So everybody was happy that they had listened to him, and they were all plentiful in the next 7 years of famine. So, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt, and all the countries came unto Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because the famine was so sore in all the lands. So that's where it ends. Chapter 41 ends, and chapter 42 will be for the next episode. And so we're at the 7 years of famine are upon Egypt, and Joseph is second to the Pharaoh. So that's where we're at. And so next time we'll be starting on chapter 42 in Genesis, and where the years of famine in the land. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope it reaches who it needs to reach. And please leave comments down below if you have any questions, and I'll try to answer them for you. And you have a wonderful, blessed day. Thank you. Bye.